Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Welcome to the second episode of our Future of Money series, powered by Nsano. My name is Amabua Eselfi, and I'm here with my panelists to discuss cryptocurrencies. It's a trending topic within the financial services and financial technology space. So in the next hour, we are hoping that in our conversations, we'll break down cryptocurrencies for everybody to understand and for us to have informed views and knowledge around the topic of cryptocurrencies. I have with me my two panelists, Dr. Augustine Odame. She's an economist and a technology consultant. Actually, a technology consultant and an enthusiast. She's well read in cryptocurrency. She wants to share her thoughts, her views, and will be a great resource for education purposes. Likewise, my second panelist, Mrs. Clara Arthur. Clara is a digital financial services consultant, very, very experienced personality joining us. And I'm very certain that for all of you joining us on Nsano's Facebook and YouTube channels, you will take away a lot of learnings and knowledge about cryptocurrencies. Welcome, my panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so cryptocurrencies, crypto, speculations here and there. People are just interested. What are cryptocurrencies? Dr. Adame, would you start? Would you take that for us?
Okay, I went a bit of an academic route here. So if we take the word cryptocurrency, we break the word down. The first part, crypto, talks about means concealed or secret and refers to the secure technology used to record who owns what and for making payments between users. The second part, currency, tells us the motivation and intent behind the design of cryptocurrencies, which is to serve as a form of electronic money or digital currency. And the technology part is one part, but the currency part is a really interesting part, which gives us a lot of the dynamics, which I'm sure we'll discuss today.
All right, Clara?
Yes, I think just to touch and to complement what Augustina just said. So she's touched on the fact that, yes, crypto, secrets, cryptographic, the technology, so you can think about computers somewhere generating something for us that we don't know. And then to make it more interesting, the whole idea about going crypto, or perhaps the rise of crypto, if I'll call it, is the fact that I think with the rise of technology and the internet, everybody wants to do away with the intermediation, middlemen. I think when you think about currencies, when you think about financial services, it's always been banks, intermediaries. Before you make one transfer from point A to point B, you have to go to 2, 3 corresponding banks. I'm sure when you're filling those forms and you see corresponding banks, you wonder what they are all doing. And all you want to do is send money from Clara to Augustina. Mm-hmm. So what is crypto? This whole thing is just the fact that we've created something that is just supposed to be anonymous, for want of a better word. And then to say that, yes, I can send money to Amma just for me, peer-to-peer, from Clara to you, and no government, no central bank, no finance minister is actually going to see what we are doing. Okay. At the end of it all, it's between you and me. So I think that just sums up and complements what the whole thing around cryptocurrencies are.
Right. So in Clara's submission, she said we've created something. Now we are speaking currencies. We are speaking money. In your submissions, there's the crypt is the whole anonymous thing. Who has created it? Where is it coming from? Dr. Adame.
So with cryptocurrency, like Clara mentioned, usually when we talk about currency, we are talking about fiat money. And those are usually issued, regulated, etc. by government, usually through the central bank. And in the case of cryptocurrency, this is put forth as something that is generated by the people for the people in a sort of way. So like Clara said, in the move away from intermediation and use technology to help us to do so. So moving away from intermediation while using technology to preserve the security and safety of the money that we are moving, the value that we are moving, we use the technology. So it's largely by the people, for the people. And people here, we are talking about computer scientists, we are talking about the various actors who interact, work on, maintain all the crypto infrastructure that drive cryptocurrency.
Okay, yeah, Clara, I want to add something.
So legend has it. I always like legend has it. Legend has it that the people who started thinking about crypto was in the early 1990s, where some technologists, there are a few names. I think this guy is one of those. There are some grandfathers of crypto those days, and I think somewhere around the Silicon Valley Bay, they were thinking, well, we have this powerful tool called the internet. How can we actually come up with this currency, like I mentioned, that would take away all of these controls? But then there was a story during the financial crisis of 2008, and I think the rise, that was when Bitcoin started. And there's a legend that there's a Japanese name, which is Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yeah.
If I hear my kids will be like, wow. Satoshi Nakamoto sent an email to this group of technologists talking about Bitcoin. And in fact, the legend is, perhaps people don't even know whether he's a man or he's a woman. So frankly, the word crypto is actually embedded in the whole idea about how I think those who created it wanted to make sure that it remained anonymous. Nobody knows. So even now, I can only tell you the literature I have read about how it originated, whether he's the true grandfather or father of crypto. But from all intents and purposes, if you go, they tell you that it was from the founder or whoever created it was this Satoshi Nakamoto guy. But whether it's a he or a she, I think the legend continues.
So, again, anonymous currency, for want of a better expression. How, in what form do they exist? How do I own it? Like we've discussed, we've said, Dr. Dami had mentioned fiat currencies, and we know where it's coming from. Yeah. We've established that, okay, this one doesn't have a known source, but people are in possession of it. Yep. How are they getting it? And how is it, I mean, obviously if it's currency, it means that there's some exchange process going on. How is it moving around? What's happening? What goes into all of these things? If you be kind enough to help us. I think I'll take it from Clara first.
Okay, this time we go. So, like we said, like she mentioned, fiat money is the money we know, the paper money. Yeah. So we see that you can touch it, you can feel it. When it comes to cryptocurrencies, you can't, it's, what's the word? There's a word they use to describe it would come. But basically, when it comes to that one, it's not tangible, isn't? So you can't touch it. So basically, it's just codes, there are nodes, but it's a computer program. So somebody sat there and wrote it. It's a code. There are different nodes. They are huge. In fact, in my mind, when I close and read about crypto, I see like the whole of Africa filled with big computers, churning numbers. So how do you do it? It's a whole ledger that people have codes, people have all these secret passwords. And I think to make it very easy and to make everybody listening on Facebook and all the channels to follow us, just imagine large computers grinding. Or in fact, some people have related it to the mining sector. I don't know if you've gone to the mining pits to see the excavators. So just imagine large computers sitting there, mining, cracking codes. You need to have like some passwords that, I don't know if you heard the story about the guy who invested at the beginning, is now almost 200 billion, but he can't remember the password. So, and you have only 10 attempts. He's done 8, there's only 2 left. So, hey, you know what it is. So basically, it's just technology. It's just people understanding cryptography, and they've written codes, and that is the way you mine them. So the process is actually called mining, where you go ahead and you mine these codes. And if you are the owner, you have to actually crack a certain, what's it called? Like a certain mathematical puzzle to be able to mine, and if you have that. So it's a very computerized language, but let's keep it simple and just make sure that, imagine billions and billions of computers sitting there, just everybody coming together to create a certain single node that would come through. At least that's what I know, but I'll leave the doctor to give us the actual terms.
So I think I'm quite aligned with that. I did find an explanation of mining, which I thought was quite succinct and clear, so I'd like to share that. So to buttress what Clara said, the short general answer is that cryptocurrency is created by code. And the code for almost all cryptocurrencies is public. So anyone can check how a particular coin is created. In many cases, such as for Bitcoin and Ethereum, new coins are generated when the transactions are confirmed by a computer-generated process known as mining. And that's what you refer to as mining. So to illustrate the resource that I mentioned, that there's a Bank of England video on YouTube which explains it very simply as follows. So Bitcoin miners check for transactions on the network, and this is where users send and receive Bitcoins, that's the network, or store the digital currency. And they then work out complicated mathematical puzzles using extremely powerful computers. This is important because it's one of the drugs of Bitcoin. If you're using extremely powerful computers, there's the energy cost and other considerations to ascertain if these transactions are valid. If the transactions are valid, the miners record them on a public log of who owns what. And this public log is what is known as the ledger. And the miners who do this are paid for doing this in new Bitcoins. So in mining the process, they generate new Bitcoins. This log is known as the distributed ledger. You may have heard of the term distributed ledger technology, and this is what that means. The ledger is called the blockchain, which we've heard a lot, because as transactions are validated, they are bundled up into blocks, which are then added to the end of the ledger. And once these blocks are created, they are also linked to each other, which is where the chain comes into place. Each block includes a reference to the previous block, linking them all together in a long chain. And linking blocks together in this way makes it very difficult to tamper with the ledger. Because someone trying to cheat the system, what that means is that you need more computing power than every single miner in the entire universe. And that makes it difficult. And that's where the security of Bitcoin comes from. But it also makes it very expensive to run, not in terms of cost, but also, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of energy. The computing power required is what contributes to the extremely high energy cost of Bitcoin and other similarly mined cryptocurrencies.
Okay, so you brought in Bitcoin. How is Bitcoin related to cryptocurrencies?
So
it's a type, or it's a category. So just like you have different types of books, different types of clothes, different types of anything, different subjects that we do. So basically, Bitcoin is a type of crypto. There's Ripple, there's Ethereum. So there are types. So depending on which one, and now because they are all sort of sold or available on the stock markets, they've all become like commodities, just like you invest in buying stocks on the New York Stock Exchange or wherever you buy them. So Bitcoin is a type of cryptocurrency. So those who want to use that. So it's like, for example, we use Ghana cedi. If I come to the fiat, so our currency in the fiat world is Ghana cedi. If you're in the US, it's the dollar. If you're in the UK, it's the pound and what have you. So in the crypto world too, they have types. So their types are what you see people just throwing about, and the most successful or the earliest one is Bitcoin. That's why everybody seems to sing and dance about Bitcoin. Yes.
So we've discussed what they are. You understand? We have a sense of how they came about, essentially how they are moving around. It seems to suggest, well, it sounds a bit technical. Somebody would argue boring. But where's the hype coming from? I think that's where, for some of the people who are watching us and for the everyday man, where's the hype coming from? What's accounting for the conversations around a rather technical and not too friendly topic? That's Clara. Would you be
okay? Let me give it a shot. Then I can let my doctor come in. So Amma, imagine when was your earliest memory of using the internet? would you remember? I'm sure you were blown away. You were like, what is this that all I type is WWN? It's like, so the whole buzz is like, now it's all about technology. Everything has moved onto open places. So now we have open APIs, which is why we are sitting in Nsano offices, because definitely all the integrations you do are based on that. You have the power of the internet. We have giants like Amazon, Facebooks. I mean, we are connected, as we realize today that we're just different year groups, but we are connected. Yes. And I'm sure after today, I would see more connections from your friends, because you and I are connected, yes, and will be with us. So it's the fact that, can you imagine if you have money and there's no governor of the central bank? Hello, Dr. Addison. But I mean, or you want to send Augustina money and it's like, you just send it. You don't need to worry about exchange rates. You don't need to worry about cash out Momo. You don't need to worry about, it's just the whole buzz. And, there are enthusiasts who actually believe in these things. So, when you have people, it's like a cult. And it's like, because they are making it more attractive and they're making it so easy. I mean, we'll come to the risk of crypto, but the point is that it's just the fact that it's peer-to-peer. You're sending to you and me. Why do you need all these? If all I have to do is give you $100. Seriously, do I need to worry about going to change it to CD to this? If your bank is somewhere else, I have to think about corresponding bank like Citi or NatWest. It's just the fact that people sat back and realized that if you have this power of the internet, and now I'm talking to you, everybody's social, you can bank when you're shopping, you can transfer when you're shopping. Why don't we come up with a currency that allows seamless and frictionless payments for goods and service, or for transactions? So I think the buzz comes out of the fact that people want to be free. And freedom is nice. You remember those days growing up when they tell you not to do something? That's exactly what you want to do, because you test the system. So I think the whole idea about taking out intermediaries, because trust me, banking and the financial services has been very heavy when it comes to that. All the fees and commissions we pay. I mean, a part of me, even though I used to be a banker, worked in banking and still work in financial services, I just feel that sometimes, even for me, it's cumbersome. Our problems with ensuring people are financially included is just because of all the structures we've put in place of banking. But can you imagine what crypto is going to do for you? That to think that you have your own money, there's nobody controlling it, no exchange rate. Today, if you wake up and you have $100, it's $100. You don't look at $100, look at the present or net future value of $100. So I think the buzz for me is the fact that you want to be free. I mean, I know we put in governments to control and rules and regulations, but can you imagine a currency that is unregulated? It means I can sit here and buy anything from Azerbaijan. I can sit here and not worry about exchange rates. And for me, I think it's powerful. Can you even imagine the impact on commerce, that you don't have to worry about any transfers between banks? So to be honest, it has its advantages. Maybe it's just the way it's being applied. That is what we have to start looking at, and perhaps that is when we would need some control. But I think the whole excitement just comes from the fact that it's very secretive, and I think the people behind that are all these big technologists, and they do have the reach to be able to make sure that a lot of people see the benefits of that. But I'm sure maybe Augustina can add something. But it's the whole euphoria around the fact that there's no control and no regulation makes it grow every day we wake up.
Yeah, so that's definitely a significant portion of the buzz, that democratization, that peer-to-peer connection without the bureaucratic red tape and the extra stringent requirements. Like she mentioned some amounts that when there are certain levels of transactions, when you go into the formal banking system, it does not matter. You are still going to go through the whole stringent requirements, enhanced KYC, etc., etc. So that's definitely a pull. And even beyond transactions from peer-to-peer, it has also democratized investments. If you look at the initial coin offerings, which has become a very significant way by which startups raise money, in a lot of highly regulated financial environments, investment in companies is restricted to only approved or certain class who have gone through and have been verified as approved investors. And what ends up happening is that then this is investment in new companies is largely restricted to very high net worth individuals and financial institutions. But with cryptocurrency, if you have access to it, if you see a company that you like, you're interested in, and they are having an initial coin offering, you do not have to go for approval from anyone. You can directly invest. And that's also a very big draw of crypto.
Okay. So I guess so the thrill and then the freedom it offers people is one of those two reasons account for why people are moving into it. People are excited about cryptocurrencies. Well, when you think about cryptocurrencies, we've just spoken about what you've just said are some of the benefits of it. Would you say that, well, first of all, let's probably go into why there are arguments against it. Like, what are the demerits? Because, again, it's a very hot topic, because whereas there are people who strongly believe in it, there's also the group or the school of thought who think that it has to be, I mean, it's not even so much it has to be, we have to be careful about it. There are people who think that it's a no-no. What would you say is accounting for that heavy stance on it being a no-no space, regardless of the whole security conversations that we've had with cryptocurrencies?
I would say, in the same vein that I think too much control and regulation is a drawback, can you imagine the mayhem if we are all on a currency that is not controlled? So the same reasons why you would advocate for it, because it gives you that freedom. I think maybe perhaps it's because we've traditionally come from a background where currencies are regulated. So we are used to that. Fiat country currencies are regulated. That's why we have central banks all over the world. We have all these Ministry of Finances to come up with policy. Everything about a government is geared towards having financial stability. I mean, if you check our payment systems, the biggest, in fact, the functions of the Bank of Ghana is stability of our financial system. Is the first thing you see. So because you have to have that level of stability, sometimes when you close your eyes and you think that you have a currency where there's no control, nobody monitoring, I mean, sometimes with fiat money, we know when there's too much CD, we can pull some back. Yeah. There are mechanisms, there are physical policies, there are interventions. We use taxes in several ways to manage circulation of even having funds in the system. So for me, sometimes when I think about it, and look at the way people abuse social media. I mean, it's the same thing. Social media is a powerful tool. We need to use it to promote better living conditions, livelihoods of people. People make a living through. But at the same time, it's the same medium people use to target others. You know, so the same people who actually want to move into the crypto world or the cryptocurrencies, yes, they want to make sure that there's no control, it's free. But sometimes when I think about the fact that we would have a currency where there is absolutely no control, I have fears. I'm worried about the future. So maybe for me, that is what I would say is the fact that we need some form of regulation, but sometimes it's how much. It's like convenience. Everybody wants to be convenient, but at the same time, we need to make sure that when you go to bed, you lock your gate. It's not because you can't sleep. You will sleep, but you just want to have some security. So I think for me, what I would say to your question is the fact that I think what keeps people away or afraid is the fact that there's no control. There's risk. I mean, today when I was waiting to come here, I don't know who watched BBC today. There's I think some hacker hacked some crypto, and they're even looking for the hacker to give him 600 million. So it's like, it's the whole thing that you've hacked a system, you've done all the bad things you want to do, and now because they really want to control how much damage you're going to cause, they're looking for you to give, whether it's a trap or not. So for me, the fact is that I think we need to look at the risk of not having control. And sometimes when there are, I think laws, yes, sometimes we feel laws are a bit stringent, but laws make us move and laws make people comply. And looking at human nature, I just feel that I think at some point in time, some regulation, but how much regulation, I think it will be the same way we are having discussions about how much social media should be regulated. But perhaps Augustina can add some more here.
Yes, so I think definitely, like Clara said, and from the central banks or from government point of view, just like Clara said, when it comes to regulation and control, currency is a very hot button topic because the control of money and the regulation of that helps in managing certain key fiscal issues. And so the risk of just opening that up, and if you look at the cryptocurrency losses or the adverse news that we hear and the amount that we are talking about for smaller economies, because even the larger ones are offering ransom to the person who perpetrated the crime in order to be able to, retrieve the information or limit damage. There is a very real risk there when it comes. And it's a fine balance that we have to figure out how we are going to find and maintain that balance, because definitely there is that. And the issue of anonymity, which is one of the biggest attractions of crypto, also means that people who are engaging in activities that are illegal, like child trafficking, drug trade, arms movement, and all that, it's a haven for them. And so in as much as we need to look at the technology, because it has some positive aspects for financial inclusion, for so for instance, for cross-border payments, we want to reduce the
all the intermediaries and all the interconnections and everything.
Exactly. And so that fine balance, how to find it.
Okay, all right. Let's take a quick commercial break. And
here's all you need to know about Move Secure. Move Secure is Ghana's first mobile money escrow payment service. This service ensures that both buyer and seller are protected throughout the exchange experience. For vendors, you get to see payment has been made for your service even before you deliver an order. As a customer, get your money back if the wrong order is delivered or in the case of an attempted scam. Both parties can raise disputes right from the app or by dialing *718*8#. Amazing, right? Just dial *718*8# now. You can also download the Move Ghana app from App Store or Play Store.
all right, sure. So we've touched on some benefits and obviously some of the disadvantages of cryptocurrencies. Augustina, in your view, personal view, for or against cryptocurrencies? If you weigh the two.
If I weigh the two, I think it's not a matter of for or against.
Okay.
It's a matter of how are we going to take and derive maximum benefits from the positive aspects of crypto whilst minimizing the negative aspects. And what that means is that, especially because we are all learning about it, the technology is evolving, people's attitudes and knowledge are evolving. You mentioned that it's a highly technical, and it is to some extent, and that's one other aspect of the central banks or the government's fear when it comes to crypto, especially when it's used as an asset that people might not fully understand and appreciate the risk that they are taking. And so taking all that into consideration, how do we make sure that we can derive maximum benefit from the technology? Because the legendary founder of cryptocurrency and everybody else, the various brilliant minds that have come together to get it from that starting point to what it is today, have put in some very great work. And it has produced a lot of interesting use cases that we have for both the technology and the transactions. So how do we, knowing all that we know and knowing our risk appetite, I'm using the royal we here, perhaps as a central bank, be able to derive the maximum benefit from the positive aspects of crypto for financial inclusion, for democratizing, for reducing cost of certain transactions, etc., whilst at the same time ensuring that it does not affect the stability and security of the financial system and does not put vulnerable people at risk. So essentially the negative aspects.
Right.
Just to complement what Augustina just said, yes, I mean, fully, it's not about for or against. I think it's taking advantage of what has been done and make it better. For me, so that's why I'm happy that our central bank has announced the ECD. It's actually, in fact, I have a course coming up at the end of the year on central digital currency because I really think that is what we need to do. We need to spend time and study it and take the positives because there are clearly some good benefits. Look, printing money itself is huge. Looking at the economy, I'm sure if you look at, we've always been talking about going cashless in Ghana. What's the cost of cash? What's the real cost of cash? If we start looking at what the real cost of cash is, trust me, we'll start looking for a digital CD because at the end of it all, it takes out all, even housing alone, because all this cash is in some big room. and we are paying. It has to be air conditioned. I mean, it's not necessary. If all I need cash to do is pay my bill, pay my school fees, hospital bill, it can be in electronic form. So I fully agree with what Augustina has said. And for me, I'm happy. And the directive just came out. So I think it's in 3 parts. The central bank digital currency will be, I think there's a pilot. So there's a pilot phase. Then we'll look at that. And then the implementation phase. So we're actually going to be very supportive. We're already an engaging industry. And I'm sure this is one of the forums. So I'm hoping maybe the next one, let's spend some time and take the directive and walk through that. See what the pilot phase is. See what the implementation phase will be like. And then at least at the end of it all, when we are drawing insights and learnings, I'm sure Ghana would be one of those countries that would come up with a good ECD, which is our own crypto.
Yeah, okay. No, actually, our first, our maiden edition for this series was on the ECD. But we intend to go back to it because there's been additional information from the central bank as far as its deployment is concerned. But yes, I think it's a very good point that you both raised on the fact that there's a need to find the plus sides of cryptocurrencies and then try and maximize that whilst minimizing the risk that they come with. And the good news is our central bank is going that direction with the introduction of the ECD. Just maybe, yes, I mean, we're talking cryptocurrencies, but I've just seen a question on the central bank's ECD. So if somebody would we will delve into it in a subsequent one because of the additional information that we have. But just for the purposes of our listeners, ECD, yes, just throw some light on the ECD.
There was some. Okay, so I start talking. Let me pull something out.
Okay.
To make it very. In fact, if I had known we were going to
talk about that.
So basically, there was a press release from the Bank of Ghana, which was more to do with the Bank of Ghana has actually selected a
partner
to pilot the general purpose central register. So at least for everybody listening to us, we know that we've taken one step forward. So we have a partner, and I'm sure if you check on the partner that we have, it's somebody who has done it for other countries. So what the Bank of Ghana has announced to the public is that there's going to be a pilot phase of this. And then at the end of it all, the central bank will look at what form our ECD should take. So this is where I would ask, when you asked me to come on this program, I just started reading about cryptocurrencies. I mean, we all hear about them, but I think sometimes we don't like to read. It's not because the information is not out there. So what I'll ask anybody listening to us on all the social media channels that read about it, what form? Because at the end of it all, it's going to affect all of us. It's how we use it. So they have come up to tell us how it's going to be done. So I think the pilot phase the project is divided into 3. There's a design, there's an implementation, and there's a pilot phase. So the design is perhaps now where they're going to gather all the information. I'm sure here they will look at what sort of transactions. Usually in projects like this, you just don't do everything. We have quick wins, so we'll pick the easiest one. Maybe simple P2P. Maybe you're just trying to or maybe we can even just narrow the whole pilot to just paying for even something as simple as top up or something, and just put in a pilot. We have a sandbox as well at the central bank. So obviously now we have the infrastructure to test all these things. So the design phase will look at all of this, where they'll put the solution together, how it should look like. Don't forget, at least now people know how virtual cards are. You all sort of see those with smartphones, you can see. So the design phase will look at that, then the implementation, and then they'll do a pilot. The pilot will just be to narrow it to 1 or 2 transactions here. And at the end of it all, whatever insights the central bank gets, that is what we would work on to perhaps agree that some transaction type, this is just Clara speaking, but in my mind, I'm thinking that we would look at perhaps a certain 1 or 2 transactions that are easier to pilot that and move everybody. I'm not in favor of a big bang approach. I know some people like big bang approaches, but I believe in doing it small, making it work. If there are any mistakes, you learn from it, and then you go back again. You do the iteration, and then you come back. So I would want to see a situation whereby the central bank would have public forums for industry, civil society, the usual stakeholder dialogues that we do, so that we all come together and agree on how it should be like, and then perhaps what's the final pilot would be. I don't know if Augustina
Should
wants
look
to
like.
add, but that is in essence what the central bank has announced to us, and that was the press release that came out just a couple of days ago. So for now, we'll be waiting for them to give us updates as the project unfolds.
Okay. So I have a question from one of our viewers, and I think it's been addressed. So our viewer is asking us so it's essentially an alternative currency. The cryptocurrency is like an alternative currency, and people are asking for bitcoins, and we know that our central bank is also quite cautious about that space. And the reason why we are having some people call the central bank digital currency a hybrid, because it's essentially riding on blockchain. It's a digital currency, but it also addresses the negative sides of a digital currency.
It's backed by government, and so you have that assurance. Someone cannot forget their password, and then you lose billions of dollars.
Okay.
And so,
But let me add to that. You see, the whole idea about the government coming up with this is just to ensure that there was something you said. It's not because we want the government to sort of come in and say, this is how it's supposed to be. But at least it helps, And for Bitcoin, I think people get it wrong when it comes to Bitcoin. I think because Bitcoin is traded as if you are buying health stock or buying into Amazon, or even, let me bring you to the local stock exchange. We all buy the capital markets, the stock exchanges there. You can buy MTN shares, you can buy Standard Chartered shares, and what have you. I think people have a wrong notion when they hear Bitcoin. People think of it as investment, and that is where SEC has come in to tell you that it is not one of those places for you to invest. So Bitcoin itself is currency, electronic money, but because it's traded, and just like you can buy stock on any exchange, people feel that is where. But because we don't regulate it, all the regulators tell you don't go there. So, so Bitcoin in itself this ECD we are coming is our own form of Bitcoin. It's just that Bitcoin is a name of a product. So you have Bitcoin, you have Ripple. So at the end of it all, as and when central banks come up with their own electronic currencies, we would have all of that. I think even China is testing their digital. One of the Scandinavian countries I know is Norway or Sweden. I think one of them. So exactly. So let's get it clear what Bitcoin is just a type of a cryptocurrency. But it's just because people think that, it started at 10 cents and now it's $50,000 for one. That is where people are and making people to invest in. So it's the investment side is different, and SEC has warned us nobody goes there because we don't regulate that. So it's just like if you're going to buy shares, be warned. You see what is there, you walk onto the stock exchange and you buy it. If you want to buy Bitcoin and you go onto where it is being sold and you can afford it, you buy it. But those people sitting here deceiving people that bring 50,000 Ghana cedis, 20,000 to get it, that is where we have to draw the line. But Bitcoin in itself is just a type of cryptocurrency. And what we are trying to do in Ghana is something similar, and ours is a digital CD. So let's get that very right, because then people have a misconception about what Bitcoin is.
Yeah, and it's very important to keep at the back of our mind that the central bank issued digital currencies are backed by government. And so they are not open to some of the risk, the inherent, they are not going to disappear, for instance. And so that's a very important point when it comes to the central bank digital currency. Now we are also talking about cryptocurrency, even though we call it currency. If you step back and look at what good currency or money is supposed to have in order to be a good, serve its purpose well as money, it's not just about the medium of exchange, which is the fiat currency that we've talked about, and which is where you are able to use it to exchange for goods or services, or use it to pay for stuff. Now we have Bitcoin, and we're able to, like you said, there are places that accept Bitcoin as payment for goods and services. However, we also have the store of value, and we have a standard for deferred payment. cryptocurrency currently, Bitcoin and co, are not a good store of value because of the volatility that we see. And if you look at it, if you look at historically other commodities, other things that are traded for the purpose of investment and for the purpose of making money, you look at decades and the price of oil scarcely breaks the 10% barrier. But you look at Bitcoin, and with one announcement by the CEO of a large bank, or with a tweet by a certain a certain technology, specialist, you can have it plummeting or going up. And so for its servant full purpose as money, as currency, we still have a ways to go. Because what that means is that if a country or any other entity actually intends to set up its own cryptocurrency in the fullest extent of the word, it has to ensure that these two issues that because of the volatility of cryptocurrency, it's not able to serve well. Those are addressed before it's taken as currency at face level. And I think for those looking for maybe a good or near parallel, you realize that even with regular currencies, we have people who do forex speculation. So if you travel and you come back with 5,000 euros and decide to wait till Christmas to liquidate it, it's sort of like what you're doing with cryptocurrency, whether it's Bitcoin or any other one. You are holding on to it, expecting that the price, the value would fluctuate in your favor. And there's no formula to it.
It could go either way.
It could go either way.
So you would see that by our followers or those who are watching us are very interested in when the central bank.
Tell them to be watching all the publications and
actually their whole conversation is on whether the Bitcoin would be, the central bank would legalize Bitcoin in Ghana. Do you think it's going to happen?
No, so that's not even the conversation we are currently having. The central bank wants to issue its own digital currency that will sort of serve as some of the allure, some of the functions that are drawing us to cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. And so it's supposed to, because it's backed by the central bank, be more safe and secure, etc. My hope and what I would strongly like to see, and I think we are going to see, because in the experience with the central bank, we've realized that when it comes to a lot of things, the creation of the sandbox, and we create these measured approaches that allow us to learn. And so definitely through the design, the implementation, the piloting of the central bank digital currency, you're going to learn a lot. And I believe that will even inform the stance as to how then to approach cryptocurrency. We have a lot of, it's not just in Ghana that it's mainly considered in the terms when it comes to regulation as an asset. As an asset, because for a lot of places, that's the basket within which you can catch cryptocurrency in order to tax, in order to, that sort of thing. And so it's going to be interesting to see what we learn, and hopefully we learn enough and allows us to be able to take a good stance in order to be able to take advantage of cryptocurrency.
So I think it was Clara who mentioned that she's not a fan of a big bang approach. And so thankfully we are piloting. And then we'll take the learnings from it. And when we go full scale, then we are very certain that we got these advantages from, and this is how we can fine-tune it to our market. We're running out of time, so we'll probably be exploring our closing remarks on cryptocurrencies in Ghana.
Looking through the crystal ball, what do we see? Augustina, what do we see? What do we see perhaps in the short term?
In the short term, I think what we are going to see, given that the government is taking this bold stance, is that, and we're giving reading assignments to all those who are listening, because the press release is out there. You can read it and know the plans of the central bank. You can read about cryptocurrency. Like I said earlier, even the code and the program, it's a lot of it is out there. So we educate ourselves on it in order to be able to also take advantage when it comes out.
I think so. And I think for me, looking through the crystal ball in my closing remarks, I would want to see us perhaps within the next year or two testing a certain transaction type, whereby by that time, through this design phase and the whole work that the central bank is doing, we can actually sort of narrow down and say, look, perhaps paying for utilities, everybody has to use the ECD. I think I would want to see a situation whereby at some point we'll probably be both in parallel. For some transactions, you still need the physical cash to do that. I mean, it's like now, you don't go into the bank for little things. Perhaps if you need a mortgage or you need to have some big transaction, you would walk into a bank. But for everyday activities, you can just sit and use your banking channels to do that. So for me, I think I would love to see within the next 2 to 3 years, a definite pilot that we have implemented where everybody would sort of onboard and use it. Because another thing about Ghanaians, everybody is saying we want crypto ECD. We will launch this ECD and it will fail. I have seen success. I mean, look at our story from eSwitch till now. Now everybody is on the bandwagon of mobile money because yes, but that's because it's electronic money you're trading. So you're moving it about. So everybody is happy. So I think for me, looking through the crystal ball, I would want to see ECD come to life, that at least within the next 3 years, there'll be some transactions that we'll be doing, and that has to be solely using the ECD. And other big ticket things that government needs to move money, they can still use the fiat money and do that. But I think they are interesting times. And like Agustina said, read. The information is out there. And this is when, we have a central bank that really listens. Yeah. This is where I would want to see our listeners sort of start sending questions. And I'm sure you can send questions when there's a public forum. We, even as an industry, I'm sure from the chamber and what we all do, we are going to engage and start doing a lot more. What I do as CGAP, these are some of the learnings we share, because we've seen and implemented it in so many other countries that we can actually bring some of these experts to talk to us about that. So it's an interesting space, and I think there's nothing called boredom, Augustina, in what we do, is there?
No, there isn't. And from where I sit as the chamber, it's really exciting times for the chamber and its members, both from the point of view of the central bank digital currency, the ECD, and the various opportunities that it presents, but also that I think one thing that we sometimes forget is that the SEC also has a sandbox. And so there is that opportunity. Once we start learning, then we can start looking at the other side, because it's important. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And so it's best we start priming ourselves to get it right when we do it.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Augustina. Thank you, Clara. So like Clara said, there's just way too much information out there. But as Nsano, we are always welcome, open for your questions. We actually love for you to come to us for anything financial technology. So for those of you who follow us on Facebook, if you are not, please follow us and drop all your questions from this discussion on cryptocurrencies or anything financial technology that you would want us to help you with. We are here to share with you. So like I said, this was the second episode of our Future of Money series. We do this monthly where we discuss trending issues in financial technology. Keep your eyes glued to our social media channels for our September edition. Thank you all for joining us.